day, the honorable examiners. My name is Yohana Christin-17107030 a student of English Department, batch 2017. So today I would like to present the revision of the result of my progress seminar based on each of the examiners. So the first one, I would like to explain the recommendation from Pak Handoko. The first one, he said that the research questions are not relevant to the analysis, so it will be better to split the questions so that in the revision I have revised the analysis by splitting the questions for the two questioners, so that from 7 questions I split 3 questions for the first questions for answering the second research question. And then the second point that Pak Handoko recommended was, how did you prepare the questionnaire? Did you refer to books or articles that can make sure the questionnaire is relevant to answer the research question? So in the revision, I have mentioned that I designed the questions of the questionnaires by the inspiration of list of questions in Abidin's article. I also put reference of the Abidin article in the references. And then the third point is, please clearly state the gap of the previous researches at the end of the review or related studies, and state your position of your research toward those previous research. So I have revised my thesis of the previous research to my research, that the previous research are a language variety. Meanwhile, they are not paying attention to the knowledge of the participant toward the language or the language variety. So in this thesis, I identified the knowledge of the participant or the respondent toward the language variety, which is English. And then the position of my research is respondents, but also to see the knowledge, the level, the degree of the knowledge of variety, which is English. And then that's all the recommendations from Pak Handoko. And the next to the Bu Dian's recommendations. So the first one, Bu Dian recommended, for chapter 3, please synchronize the title and subtitles. Do you want to use result or findings? So in the revision, so I have revised my thesis and decided to use findings instead of results. So the chapter 3, in the chapter 3, I wrote findings and analysis. And then the second point is related to the theory of attitude. Who proposed the theory? Firstly, Arikunto or Kumala. Whose theory do you use? Please highlight it in the theoretical framework. So based on Bu Dian recommendation, which I more explained about the theory that I used. So I used the theory of attitude categorization of Arikunto, which is positive, negative, and neutral. Meanwhile, Kumala, the opinion of Kumala, I use the opinion describe what is I use the Arikunto theory, attitude categorization, with Kumala description of those attitude. And then we come to the Pak Hanafi's recommendation. The first should be generalization, the English department, since my correspondence only 20 students, so I have revised it in my thesis and write it into the attitude of 20 English department students towards English. So there is no overgeneralization in my thesis. And then in the declaration and I have revised it based on Pak Hanafi for thesis, both the method and then the background. Also, I have mentioned that the first point in the background that I need to revise based on Pak Hanafi's recommendation is I have mentioned that social link is an elective subject. So in the background I have mentioned that social linguistics is an elective subject in English department, so only some students only some students is the purpose of this research. Why this research is which to see the preferences or attitude people outside the community toward the language variety, because the striking differences of Shinglish and standard English has risen many perceptions and attitudes toward this variety. So that in this research I want to see I saw the preferences and attitude of people outside the community, which is English department student. And then the third point of the background, that is the type of attitude should not be written in the background. So Pak Hanafi's recommended me to move it to the theoretical framework, and I have done it in my latest version of thesis. And then the research question also have to be revised, and I have revised it based on the title, which is the first one is what is the knowledge of 20 students towards English, and then the second research question is what is the attitude of 20 English department students towards English, and then the method also have to be revised, and I have revised the method of my thesis. That there are several and proposal grammars, so I have revised it into thesis grammars. And then I have revised the related studies and mentioned that all of the related studies that I written in my thesis, they have the same topic, or they have same object, or they have same theory. So that's why I put them into my related studies. And then I have also mentioned the gap of the studies, the similarity and the significances of the relative studies to my research, to my present research. And then theoretical framework also I have rephrased by my own sentences, and then I have given more description related to direct approach, which is the direct approach is measure also have changed the name of direct method into direct approach based on Pak Hanafi's I also have revised the analysis that and I have separated for the knowledge and which are for the attitude. And then the conclusion, I also have revised that there is no generalization of English department by mentioning by mentioning in the title that this research is only measuring the 20 English department students. The answers of the respondents are going to be mostly negative because the mandatory requirement for having an attitude toward a language is not present. That is why your conclusion is unacceptable. However, I do not agree because given that people may have attitude toward a language or a variety of language which are the part of world Englishes, whether they have experience or no experience with the varieties. So based on Baker, I conclude that the attitude of 20 English department students toward Shinglish is acceptable because even though they do not have English, their attitude toward Shinglish is still acceptable. And then in the conclusion, neutral attitude is a by the 20 students of English as an attitude. And then in the references, Pak Hanafi said that I have to revise some references. For example, Smackman and Wegener is there is no references I put of Smackman, so I have written maybe and then I also has changed this countries because the previous in the previous draft of my thesis I wrote several city in the references. So I think that's all the revision of my thesis, and I would like to deliver my deepest grateful and thank you to all of my examiners for all of the constructive and supportive recommendations. Thank you for your attention.